Welcome to Tori's Tea Time Talk with God. Welcome to another episode of Tori's Tea Time Talk with God. I know. A lot of you were saying, man, what happened to Tori? It's like she dropped off of the scene. And I tell you what, I have experienced in this past week one of the two great wonders of the world. One is a man-made wonder in Taos, New Mexico, in which I am actually doing a docu-video series of the adventure of how this Hebrew melanated sister stepped up into an earthship adventure. And I consider this one of the man-made wonders of the world. And I'll just show you a brief picture of what one looks like. And I will also drop in the description below a link that will take you to the very first video that I have already done that was released on January 31st. I'm sorry I didn't let you know before, but that was just released on January 31st to begin the docu-video series. But what caused us to be there, I saved the best for last. What caused us to be where we were was the celebration of one of the greatest wonders of the world, and that is the celebration of how God takes two people and make them one. That's right, my husband and I have celebrated our 20th anniversary. I mean, what a greater way to celebrate 20 years of that coming together as one process after spending the last 7 or 8 years, traveling around the world, than to do a domestic adventure of our own right here in the good old United States of America, in a place called New Mexico. And so, again, I will be sharing, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to do a DuckDuckGo. And yes, I am putting in a plug for DuckDuckGo. I don't get any money or anything else, but one of the things I appreciate about DuckDuckGo is this right here: tired of being tracked online. Just so that those of you who've never seen an Earthship home, I'm going to give you an opportunity to experience that right now, to see what that experience was like, or at least to give you a preview so you can kind of get an understanding of what the experience is like. So here is an image. So these are the various different Earthships, and in all their splendor and what they look like and all of that. But I mean, what makes these Earthships a point of interest is because of the times we're living in, and it is an completely off the grid way of living your life without being in constant tyranny or concern on whether or not the cost of everything is going to outsource the things that are necessities for living. So when you think about the concept that energy, lights, electricity are a necessity for living, and that you can be priced out of it. We're not living in a days where people are accustomed to being able to live in a home and know how to, or who have homes equipped with wood burning stoves, and people, this has been their way of life, of knowing how to live with wood burning stones, or stoves. We're not living in a time where we're used to living and having an outhouse that you go to and having that platform put together so that you can have a sanitary, safe sewage system in place in which you can do things that you have to do. We are now a place that is dependent on having water to supply to toilets that take thousands of gallons in order to do a flush. We're used to living in how can I put it? Living in a system where we don't know how to function without electricity. People are freezing. People can literally freeze to death if they had a full electric home living in areas that get 18, 19 degrees, which is one of the places I went. It gets extremely cold there. So imagine if you couldn't afford to pay your electric bill in this dead of winter and you got cut off. Or imagine if there's a ice storm and you can't get electricity and you don't have a gas stove where you can have the more reliable option if there was a storm or what have you, which is not a reliable option if you can't afford to pay for the gas. So then now you have no gas, you have no electricity, and you don't have a fireplace. Or if you had a fireplace, you have one of those electric, beautiful, fireplaces with the diamond looking stones at the bottom. But what good is that if you don't have electricity? I mean, so these are the things that, we're living in times where it can be very scary to consider. You putting people in places where the only options that they may have are very unsafe options, like using, maybe kerosene heaters to heat inside of your home. And that's if you can afford the kerosene, or if you can even find kerosene. I mean, who uses that anymore? I mean, or trying to use something that is made for outside, inside, because who in the world wants to have to get so close to a fire that you almost have to singe your skin to stay alive, because you're trying to be outside where you can ventilate the proper air situation so that you're not bringing, harmful chemicals into your home and possibly killing yourself that way through the outgassing. So when you think about all of these things, it's just, like I said, it's an amazing phenomenon. It truly is. It truly is. So, having said that, here's where I am on this. Here's where I have been on this year, is really going to and experiencing what this Earthship experience is like, and chronicling and experiencing it so that I could see for myself. And what better time to determine whether or not an Earthship concept could actually work than in the dead of winter. And trust me, not that it didn't come with its challenges, but again, it was something worth looking into. I had already been studying it for over 20 years, but it's one thing to study something, it's another thing to actually walk it out, to see what are the pros and cons of this. Is this something that I could even conceive of doing, or is this something that's worth knowing how to do, living in the days we're in? And if you want to know the answers to those questions, because I'm certainly not going to spend much more time on that here, then definitely you want to subscribe to my Critique Travel Advisor channel on YouTube, so that you can stay abreast of that. Or you're going to want to visit my www, actually it's not, I'll just put it right here because I've already uploaded the first one, the critiquetravel.wordpress.com. You're going to want to join that blog where I will be posting my docu-video series, and I'll also I probably have to start a Rumble channel, and I will, but yeah, I'll be posting that and putting that here so that you can see what my experience was like, and so that you can, like I said, I go through the whole process. So I'm not planning on rushing it. I'm planning on going and taking my time with it. But as you can see, I'm one person doing all these things. So it may take some time to go through the whole series. But I have the pictures, the videos, and, like I said, the experience. I have gone through it. And I plan to tell you whether or not I thought it was worth it. I plan to give a full review, not just on the biotexture concept as a theory and as a concept, but also what my experience was in renting or doing an Airbnb of an actual studio, simple survivor studio, and what my pros and cons of that are. So with that being stated, we're going to get back on our study. I'm drinking strawberry hibiscus tea, so that is the tea that I am spilling for today. And please believe that liquids and computers are not the best things in the world to have together. But flashing forward into our biblical adventure, which is, we ended off really trying to pinpoint where this Garden of Eden could have possibly been located. And again, it was a major challenge because I was not able to find actually a map that inclusively shows the area that covered this area that is Ethiopia. That in our Bible says Ethiopia, but is the land of Cush, at least not from, and which means Cush. So as we know, Cush is one of the children later on, as we read, is one of the children of Ham. Okay, so you have Mitzrayim, which is Egypt. You have Cush, which is where you see Ethiopia. But in addition to be one of the children of Ham, we find later on through Solomon that Cush becomes one of the people of Shem. So, and we're going to go through that because let's be very clear. The majority of the Bible, when you go from the time Noah and his wife and his 3 children and their wives repopulate the earth, from that point until you get to basically the New Testament, your adventures are the adventures of Shem and Ham. We don't get Japheth back into the picture until we start getting into the Greeks, where you're now getting your Caucasus and all these other groups of people. So let's be extremely clear on who the major players are in the scriptures that we are reading. And I want to say that up front, this is the perfect time to do so because we've been introduced now to Ethiopia. And I want to say that too because then the question comes, Cush. Well, Cush doesn't come up until, this is one of the children of Ham. How we have this right here in our Bible back here in Genesis. This was already, predicted or what? Well, so here's the thing. Let's remember that somebody is chronicling this. And so the person who's chronicling this, which we call these the 5 books of Moses, the person who's chronicling this wasn't actually alive. Moses comes way after Noah, right? So he wasn't actually alive to visibly see these things that we are reading, right? So you're talking about history that's been passed down and now we have a writing system that is available during the time of Moses, during the time of Joseph even. So now we have someone who may have had some writings by the time of Joseph, who now also has some additional writings by the time of, his own living, that he can now connect all these dots and write all this, chronicle all this information. Because let's think about it. If you were doing an autobiography, excuse me, not an autobiography, because it's not autobiography for Moses. This would be more like a biography for Moses, right? He's not writing a biography of himself, which is an autobiography. He's writing a biography of how the world came into being and bringing the world into the focus of what happened before humankind was even created to where he was, right? So you got someone who's chronicling all of this information. What they would have access to is what was accessible, what was available in terms of names of rivers and things like that. What was those same rivers called while he was alive? And that would be what he would use, because he wants people to, particularly people who he's giving this book to be able to identify these places in real time. So would God, who's giving biography of how the world came into existence, use terms and names that are not in existence during the time that Moses is writing this? Or would he use the names that were already in existence? Because the world at this point that Moses is writing is already full-fledged. There's names. You know, he was in Mitzrayim with his people, knowing they were in Goshen, knowing there's a river Euphrates. All these things were in existence when he's on the scene. So would God pull names that perhaps Adam would have given that may not be in existence by the time Moses come along, may have been renamed for him to identify the locations of where this garden might have been? Because remember, if God wanted to keep this a secret, he just would have never told Moses. So the point wasn't so that God wanted to keep this a secret. He would have just, it would have been just like he told Daniel. You know, it's certain things I'm just, who was it? Like he told John, you know, write these things. He said, but look, hush, seal the seven thunders. You know, certain things, or like he told Yeshua. Because even Yeshua, he said there are certain things only the Father has reserved himself. But all that he has made known to me, I've made known to you. I mean, there are some things, some secret things that have yet to be unearthed, revealed. And that's by design. So it's not like God doesn't know how to keep a secret. So the fact that he's giving us names is clear that he wants us to, in some kind of way, be able to identify these places. And being that the whole world was wiped out, you know, only 8 people survived, it would make sense that he would name places that would have some kind of significant meaning to the person who's now codifying all this. And so it's going to be something that had to have been identifiable in some kind of way to somebody who Moses could identify with. So whether that's Noah, or whether that's, you know, just during the time of Joseph, these places got certain names, somebody would have been able to identify these as places of interest, that we could today be able to now kind of gain some kind of pieces to the puzzle to. So that being stated, the benefit of having an Ethiopia in there is that Ethiopia is a place that still exists today, in which can be a very launch pad for which we can begin our study. So I had to go outside of Esor to find some maps. And so I'm just going to show you what I did. I mean, like I said, I ain't do nothing super difficult. And again, we're going to go to DuckDuckGo because, as I stated, I am tired of having my privacy being removed from me. So we're going to just look up Garden of Nope, we're gonna look up Havilah. That's a perfect place right there. The land of gold. Let's see if we can find some maps that will give us some ideas. And there were like 2 different maps I looked at, because you want to get 2 or 3 witnesses, and I believe this was one of them. No, this was not. This was not one of them. The map I looked up actually had Havilah. Okay, so you have Pishon on this one. This was one I looked up. It's not really the one that I wanted. Okay, so what I like about this map is it does tell you where the land of Ham was. This would have been Ethiopia, although I have seen maps that show a much larger, because if this pink is what's supposed to be identifying what is Ham, I do believe Ethiopia was larger than this. But anyway, so it is showing Havilah being somewhere down here, right? We don't see Pishon and all those other places, which I really would like to see a map that has Havilah and Pishon. And, well, some say Pishon and some say Pishon. Bible that we have Pishon, so we'll go with Pishon. Because it's important to see where all of these are. I mean, can we get a bigger picture? What in the world? I'm sorry, y'all, about the pop-ups. You know, it's almost unavoidable, especially on IBM compatible computers. I don't have this happening except in a controllable way. You know, like there are things that I can cut off before I start screen printing in my Mac that for some reason, you know, the IBM compatible computers are extremely invasive to me, and they make things so complicated. I remember when it used to be simple to use, but it's like it's on purpose. They change and switch things in a way to make it so that you basically have to go back and be re-educated on how to use it. And it's like, if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. Okay, so we see here, that's more of a more recent picture. And again, that's the other issue with looking at modern maps, is it doesn't take in consideration the shifts that have taken, you know, land that you could have lost, just like, you know, certain amount of land has been lost to water. I mean, you got natural things that have happened that have shifted, you know, the complexity of things. So it's not, you really cannot look at modern maps and get a picture of where it could have been based on a description in scripture, because of how land would have changed and how much more water has taken over certain areas. And so anyways, it's just a complicated process that it doesn't have to be. And I don't even see the map that I saw when I did my own study. Of course, I did my study on a Mac, and I'll be stuck here on this IBM compatible computer. And I mean, it's nothing against the computer itself. Like, the hardware of the computer is, it's a Dell, is at least not this one. But I mean, I'm just not a software fan of Microsoft products. Goodness. So, you know, anyway, don't mind my bad press of it. I'm not trying to make any enemies of people who are diehards of stuff. I'm just trying to give a different perspective of the same software. By and large, the pros do, as far as biblical study, does outweigh, because there's a reason why I'm using this as opposed to Mac. Mac is not, to me, friendly to a lot of Bible based software, and so that is a major problem. I'm sure it's not just Bible based software, because they just have like this, you know, Fort Knox security system, I suppose. But man, ooh. But at the very least, I could say I have a lot more accessible software tools to me on the IBM compatible, that I just like I have it on my Android versus, just Mac type thing. So I am grateful for that. Super, super grateful for that. But for trying to conduct this study, it is proving to not be as helpful to me, which I don't understand why because I use, I may have used Start Page. So let me try Start Page, because I think that is the search engine that I use, or it may pull it up. Okay, so we're just gonna let's get off of that real quick. Ugh. And see if I might get what I actually saw. And so far, I'm seeing different maps, but this is not the one that I saw. So this may be, so here's a consensus of what I do see. Because see, look, you have some that show that the Garden of Eden possibly was somewhere in this Assyria, Turkey-ish area. But I guess my issue with that is that, well, if that's the case, then he's telling us a place that's excuse me, where there is Ethiopia. So unless there's, when you look, let's just look on this map, for instance. Ethiopia, okay, is quite a distance from Turkey. So how in the world, even Israel, how in the world could it be here when Ethiopia is below where Egypt is? So that to me does not make any sense. It just doesn't make sense that it would be all the way up here when Ethiopia is all the way down here. In other words, Ethiopia would have had to have been much larger. It would have taken up a large part of this in order to stretch it. And even the maps that I've seen that show Havilah, right, would have to have been in Euphrates River. We know where the Euphrates River is. Havilah, if it's right here, that's clearly going to be in the area of Egypt, or at least nearer to Egypt. It's possible Egypt could be right here. We don't see it. In Ethiopia could be somewhere down here. So it's just a lot of questions. To me, the only link we have, based on information that's given, because it still exists today, are going to be we know Ethiopia still exists. We know I don't know where Hiddekel is, but that we know it going towards the east of Assyria, which Assyria, we take for granted that Assyria is somewhere connected to Syria, then okay. So if we're saying Syria is this, if it goes towards the east of Syria, but from Ethiopia is going towards the east of Syria, then I have to still have, that's why this is the problem for me, I have to still have Ethiopia somewhere in this picture. And it's not. So, like I said, I guess it's going to be an ongoing investigation. And this is where we were before. But look, this is the thing about studying the scripture. It's not, you're not going to always get your answer on your first go round, right? And as we have seen, obviously not on your second go round either. But we still explore. So anyway, unfortunately, I spent another major part of time not really being able to get further into the study. And unfortunately, for my study, that is, but not unfortunate for me. Unfortunately for my study, it may be a few more days before I get back into my regular routine of doing my Tori's Tea Time Talk, because I am also about to celebrate the life of a family member who has reached 80. And so there's going to be a party given and an opportunity for me to see family that I don't see often. If you're one of those people who are in those family situations where you don't have regular bi-yearly or yearly family reunions, then you understand exactly what I'm talking about. You have basically 2 occasions in which you're going to get to see family, and unfortunately one of them is funerals and the other is possibly weddings. So to have another type of occasion in which we can all get together, it was like, yeah, I better take advantage of this opportunity, because it's not one that's going to be necessarily promised to me at another time. So that being the case, okay, so where we're going to start, I'm just going to at this point let it go as it relates to trying to locate the mysterious Garden of Eden. I mean, he put up flames of swords to keep man from getting in it, so it may be part of the whole mystique that that's the reason why this is not easy to find. But I am also reminded of a scripture that says that it is the glory of God to conceal a matter and the honor of kings to search it out. So I say that to say that, hey, we are part of a kingdom, that we know who the king is, and that, hey, if it's something he really wants us to find out, and I believe that anything that is given is for that purpose, that we should pursue it. So I'm not saying it's an unworthwhile venture. I'm just saying that we are going to push forward without really having the full answer to that question. And I pose it to all my listeners to definitely do your own study. If this is your area of expertise, if geography, archaeology, everyone has their bin, and you find something, please let me know. I would be glad to host you to actually share with my listeners what information you found, if you do find something that is of interest, because we need to explore this. I mean, it could have, I firmly believe, because he said he declared the end from the beginning, that there is something significant about knowing where it is for us today, because we are living in the last days. Whether or not people want to recognize it or not, whether or not people want to think, oh, we're going to just go back to normal, things are going to be as they always been. Yeah, no. It's too many biblically prophetic events that have taken place for us to actually believe that we are not getting ready for the Messiah's eventual return, and for some serious fire and smoke and brimstone and all these kinds of things to start just popping off. So I am not one of those people who believe that, hey, things are going to just get back to normal and we're going to just go back living our merry old lives, doing all the wicked things that we've been doing as a nation and as a people. And, it's just going to be back to the way it was. I'm not one of those people. I do believe the Bible is true. I do believe that there are significant events that have taken place that points us to the fact that we are heading into the book. We're not only heading, but we are deep into, we are not headed, but we are deep into the book of Revelation. And how deep, it's still being uncovered. Now, where certain people may think we may not be on the same page on exactly what events have already taken place and what events that will take place before the Messiah returns. But we are clear, if you are reading this book and believing the words that are in it, and you are watching, as we have been told to watch and pray during this time at the events that are taking place before our eyes, you are clear that we are in the day of the Lord. So, with that being stated, we are going to go back through our reading, which would probably, I think we already went through we went through of the tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in that day that thou eatest, therefore thou shalt surely die. So I don't think we've gotten too far into that. So we're going to start back into Genesis 2:17, and we're going to just keep reading forward as far as we can. Because like I said, I'm not trying to go, so quickly that we miss some of the very important, deep things that God is sharing with us. But, I do want to, hone in on this thou shalt surely die, this muth, because there is some prophetic significance to why this word is doubled here. And some understanding there that you have to have a Hebrew frame of mind, or at least understand Hebrew, in order to understand why the double is so significant. So we're going to get back to that, but at this point we're going to put a pause for the cause, because again, we just, like I said, I had to explain why I was missing in action. And I didn't want to leave, the whole Garden of Eden map thing as a mystery. But unfortunately, I was not able to pull up the maps that I saw on my other computer. And, but I again encourage you to do that. Study is worthwhile doing. And we just got to press forward. How about that? So we're going to go on to, like I said, Genesis 2:19, and we're going to just keep it moving. No, to Genesis 2:17, we're going to start there when we begin tomorrow. Y'all willing. I'm going to say tomorrow, because I can't say what y'all may have me do. I can't even say if I'm going to be here tomorrow, much less whether or not we're going to keep going. But as long as he is willing, I am willing. And as long as, there is, nothing major that happens that derails me or distracts me, then the plan is to continue on. And so we should be able to get a lot further, because now I've already explained the mystery of my disappearance. And so we'll be able to start fully and give the whole time to this. So, I want to share the Aaronic blessing upon all my listeners, and then we're going to close out. May Yehovah bless you and keep you. May Yehovah make his face to shine upon you. May Yehovah grant you peace. Shalom. Thank you for listening to Tori's Tea Time Talk with God. Shalom.